My son's face twisted into a grin as the security guard shoved me back from the cemetery gate. He waved at me like I was a stranger, then turned to his wife's phone camera and said, "The parasite has been removed." 300 mourners watched me stumble on the sidewalk outside my own wife's funeral. But I did not fight. I did not scream. I just smiled. Because in exactly 48 hours, when the lawyer opened that trust document, my son would discover that his mother had built a mirror, and every ugly thing he had ever done was about to reflect back onto him with the force of $30 million. Thank you for being here with me. Before we go any further, take a moment to leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from. And as you think about what you just heard, ask yourself this: when the people you raised draw a line against you, do you step back or do you step forward? Also, please note, this story contains some fictional elements for storytelling and educational purposes. Any resemblance is coincidental, but the message shared here is meant to be meaningful. The rain at Greenwood Memorial Cemetery was the kind that does not fall so much as hang in the air, a cold mist that seeps into your bones and stays there. I arrived 20 minutes early. I wanted to be the first one there. I wanted to stand beside her casket before the crowd arrived, before the performance began. I parked my 14-year-old truck at the bottom of the hill and walked up the gravel path in my only black suit, the one Diane had picked out for me 11 years ago. It was tight across the shoulders now. The cuffs were frayed, but it was the suit she chose, and I was going to wear it to say goodbye. I made it halfway up the path before I saw them. Two men in black, tactical jackets, standing at the wrought iron gate. Private security. They were not cemetery staff. They were hired muscle. The kind you see outside nightclubs, not funerals. I kept walking. I kept my hands in my pockets and my chin level. I had spent 40 years walking onto construction sites where men twice my size tried to intimidate me. Two bouncers at a graveyard were not going to slow me down. "Sir," the first one said, stepping into my path. His hand came up flat against my chest. "This is a private service. Name and identification, please." "My name is Harold Sinclair," I said. "I am the husband of the woman in that casket." "Ex-husband." A voice corrected from behind the gate. I looked through the iron bars. Ryan was standing on the other side, 10 feet away. My son. He was wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my truck. His hair was slicked back. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. He looked like a magazine advertisement for a life built on someone else's credit card. He held a glass of something amber in his left hand. It was 10 in the morning. "You are not on the list, Dad," Ryan said. He did not call me Dad with any warmth. He said it the way you say a word. "You are trying to scrape off your shoe." I made the guest list personally. "Family only." "I am family," I said. "I am your father." He took a sip of his drink. "You are a retired bridge builder who lives in a 400-square-foot apartment and drives a truck with rust on the fenders. You are not family. You are a reminder of everything Mom left behind when she became successful." The words landed like hammer blows, but I did not flinch. I had been hit harder. I spent 11 months in the field as a young man before I picked up a slide rule, and I learned that the first man to show pain is the first man to lose. "I just want to say goodbye, Ryan," I said quietly. "Let me through." He smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a boy who had just pulled the wings off something small. Then his wife appeared. Becca. She materialized at his shoulder like a ghost wrapped in designer black. She was holding her phone at arm's length, the front camera pointed at both of us. The little red recording light was blinking. She was live. She was broadcasting my humiliation to her 900,000 followers in real time. "Oh my God, babe," she said in that breathy voice she used for her audience. He actually showed up. The audacity. She tilted the phone so my face filled the screen. "Look at him. Look at this man who abandoned his family trying to crash a funeral he was not invited to. This is what narcissistic abuse looks like, guys. This is what entitlement looks like. I looked at the lens. I did not perform. I did not plead. I just stood there, a 70-year-old man in the rain, being filmed like a criminal at the gates of his own wife's burial. Ryan raised his glass toward the camera. "The parasite," he announced, "has been removed." The security guard put his hand on my shoulder then. It was not a gentle touch. It was a shove. I stumbled backward off the curb. My left knee hit the wet pavement. Pain shot up my thigh. 300 people on the other side of that gate saw me fall. Not one of them moved to help. I got up slowly. I brushed the mud from my knee. I looked at my son through the bars one last time. He had already turned his back. He was walking toward the casket with Becca on his arm, laughing about something, the phone still recording. I stood there for a long time. The mist settled on my shoulders like a second coat. I watched them lower Diane into the ground from 50 yards away, through iron bars, like a prisoner watching the world continue without him. But I was not a prisoner. And I was not defeated. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. It was an old model with a cracked screen, exactly the kind of phone a broke old man would carry. I dialed a number I had memorized 30 years ago. The line connected on the first ring. "Martin," I said. My voice was steady as poured concrete. They made their move. The voice on the other end was calm and immediate. Martin Caldwell had been waiting for this call. "How bad?" he asked. "They hired private security to block me from the funeral," I said. His wife filmed the whole thing live-streamed my humiliation to 1 million people. There was a pause. Then Martin let out a long, slow breath. "Diane predicted this," he said, almost word for word. "I know," I replied. "Activate the reading. Tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. And Martin, make sure the conference room is cold. I want them uncomfortable before they even sit down." I hung up. I took one last look at the cemetery. The mourners were dispersing now, black umbrellas blooming like dark flowers across the hillside. Somewhere beneath that wet earth, Diane was resting, but her work was not done. She had spent the last year of her life building something far more powerful than a real estate empire. She had built a machine, a mirror made of money and law and truth. And tomorrow morning, my son was going to look into it for the first time. He was not going to like what he saw. I walked back to my truck. My knee throbbed. The rain kept falling, but I was smiling. Because an engineer knows that you do not fight the storm. You build the structure strong enough to stand through it. And the structure Diane and I had built together was going to stand long after the storm of my son's greed had blown itself out. I did not drive home after the funeral. Home was a 400-square-foot apartment in Selwood, a quiet neighborhood on the east side of Portland where nobody recognized me and nobody cared. It was a good place to disappear, but I did not want to disappear tonight. I wanted to remember. I drove south along the river until I reached a small coffee shop called the Morning Bridge. It sat on a corner lot between a bookstore and a laundromat, the kind of place tourists never found and locals kept to themselves. The sign above the door was hand-painted, faded by 10 years of Oregon rain. I had been coming here every Sunday for 9 years, and for 9 of those years, Diane had been sitting across from me in the booth by the window, drinking her black coffee with 1 sugar, telling me about her week like we were still married. Because in every way that mattered, we were. I pushed open the door. The bell chimed. The owner, a Greek woman named Elena, looked up from behind the counter. She saw my face and she knew. She had seen Diane and me together every single Sunday. She knew what today meant. She poured my coffee without asking and set it on the table by the window. Diane's seat was empty. It would always be empty now. I sat down. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, and I let myself go back. 9 years. That was how long we had been playing this game. 9 years of staged poverty and secret Sundays. 9 years of pretending to the world that we were strangers when we were anything but. It started with a phone call. Ryan was 27 years old. He had just burned through his third business venture, a marketing agency that turned out to be nothing more than a credit card with a logo. He owed people money. Bad people. And when the walls closed in, he did what he always did. He called his mother. But this time was different. This time, he did not ask for money. He made a threat. I was in the kitchen of our home on Highland Drive when Diane's phone rang. I watched her face change as she listened. The color drained from her cheeks. Her hand gripped the counter edge until her knuckles turned white. When she hung up, she looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was terror. He said he is going to jump off the Morrison Bridge. She whispered. He said if I do not wire $200,000 to his account by midnight, he will drive to the bridge and jump. I remember the silence that followed. I remember the clock on the wall ticking. I remember thinking that my son, my boy, the child I had taught to ride a bicycle on that same bridge 20 years earlier, was now using it as a weapon. We paid. Of course we paid. What parent would not? We wired the money at 11:45 that night. Ryan called back an hour later, cheerful as a spring morning, thanking us for understanding, promising it would never happen again. It happened again. 3 more times over the next 2 years. 200,000, then 150,000, then 300,000. Each time the same script. The bridge, the threat, the deadline. Each time, Diane crumbled a little more. After the third call, she sat me down at this very table, in the morning bridge. Her hands were shaking. She had not slept in days. Harold, she said, I cannot keep bleeding money into a hole that has no bottom. But I cannot let my son die. If he is bluffing, then I am funding his addiction. If he is not bluffing, then saying no means burying him. I reached across the table and held her hands. They were cold. What do you want to do? I asked. She looked at me with those sharp green eyes. The same eyes that had built a hotel empire from a single bed and breakfast in Astoria. The eyes of a woman who solved impossible problems for a living. We divorce, she said. I blinked. Not for real, she continued. On paper, if you are poor, if you have nothing, he cannot come to you for money. He will focus entirely on me, and I can control the flow. I can track where it goes. I can build a system. I understood immediately. It was structural. It was what I would have done with a failing bridge. You isolate the weak section. You redirect the load. You let the damaged span carry only what it can handle while you reinforce the foundation beneath. We filed the papers 3 months later. The divorce was public. It was ugly by design. Diane made sure the story looked real. She kept the empire. I kept the truck, and the apartment, and the appearance of a man who had been left behind by success. But every Sunday, without fail, I drove to the morning bridge. And every Sunday, she was here. We talked about everything. The business, the hotels, Ryan's latest disaster. She told me about the lawsuits from former partners that made the fake divorce even more necessary. She told me about the trust she was building, piece by piece, year by year. A machine made of legal language and conditional triggers designed to save our son from the one person who was destroying him. Himself. The last time I saw her here was 14 days before she died. She was thinner then. The cancer had not yet been diagnosed, but the heart failure was advancing. She tired easily. She ordered her coffee but barely drank it. She just held the mug and looked at me with a strange expression. Part love, part sorrow, part something I could not name. I built something for him, Harold, she said. Not a punishment. A mirror. When I am gone, you will understand. Every action he takes after my death will have a reflection. Every move he makes, good or bad, will bounce back to him with equal force. She paused. Her eyes were wet. I am leaving you with the hardest job in the world. she whispered. Being the mirror holder. Watching your own son look at himself and not like what he sees. Can you do that for me? I told her I could. I did not know what it would cost me. I did not know about the videos she had recorded. I did not know about the 5 triggers she had programmed into the system. I did not know that our son had already begun killing her, slowly, pill by pill. I only knew that the woman I had loved for 42 years was asking me to be strong, and I had never once said no to her. I finished my coffee. The mug was cold. Elena was wiping down the counter, pretending not to watch me. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was a bruised purple, the color Portland wears when it is grieving. My phone buzzed. A text from Martin. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Conference room, B. He brought his own lawyer. And Harold, he brought champagne. He thinks he is inheriting $30 million in cash. I stared at the message. I thought of Ryan's face at the cemetery gate. The smirk. The glass of amber liquid at 10 in the morning. The word, parasite. I thought of Diane in this booth, holding her coffee, saying the word mirror, like it was a prayer. I typed back, good. Let him celebrate. The hangover is going to be spectacular. I put the phone away. I left a $20 bill on the table. I walked out into the evening air. Tomorrow morning, my son was going to sit in a leather chair and hear the number 30 million and think his life was about to begin. He did not know it was about to end. Not his life. His illusion. The illusion that money could be taken without earning it. The illusion that cruelty had no cost. The illusion that his mother was just a checkbook with a heartbeat. Tomorrow, the mirror would be unveiled. And reflections, unlike suns, do not lie. The next morning I put on the same black suit. I did not iron it. I did not polish my shoes. I wanted to look exactly like the man they expected me to be. Broken. Desperate. Clinging to the last thread of a connection that the world believed had been severed a decade ago. The drive downtown took 30 minutes. I parked in the public garage 4 blocks from the building because the visitor lot at Caldwell & Associates cost $40, and a broke old man would never pay $40 to park. Details matter. Every engineer knows that a structure fails at the joints, at the small places where carelessness accumulates. The building was glass and steel, 42 stories of corporate ambition rising above the Willamette River. I rode the elevator to the 31st floor. The doors opened to a reception area that smelled of leather and fresh orchids. Everything was designed to communicate one message. You are in the presence of serious money. The receptionist was a young woman with a headset and a smile that did not reach her eyes. She looked at my frayed cuffs, my scuffed shoes, my cracked phone. She had already decided what I was. Name? She asked without looking up from her screen. Harold Sinclair, I said. I am here for the Sinclair estate reading. She checked her list. Her eyebrows pulled together. I do not see you on the priority list, Mr. Sinclair. Are you sure you were invited? I am the father, I said. She picked up her phone. She whispered something I could not hear. A moment later, Martin Caldwell appeared from the hallway. He was tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed. He had been Diane's attorney for 22 years. He knew every secret we had ever buried because he had helped us dig most of the graves. Harold, Martin said warmly. He shook my hand. His grip was firm and brief. Come with me. The receptionist watched us go. Her face had shifted from dismissal to confusion. She could not reconcile the frayed suit with the personal escort from the senior partner. Martin led me down a long corridor lined with oil paintings. He leaned close as we walked. They arrived 20 minutes ago, he said quietly. Ryan brought a lawyer named Douglas Fenn. Small firm, ambulance chaser. He also brought 2 bottles of Veuve Clicquot and a Bluetooth speaker. I think he plans to celebrate. I nodded. Let him, I said. Martin pushed open the heavy oak doors to conference room B. It was massive. A long walnut table that could seat 16 stretched across the center. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the river and the mountains beyond. The room was cold. I had asked Martin to set the thermostat low. Discomfort breeds impatience, and impatience breeds mistakes. At the far end of the table, my son and his wife were already holding court. Ryan sat with his feet propped up on the walnut surface, a glass of scotch in his hand. It was 9:15 in the morning. His lawyer, Fenn, sat beside him shuffling papers and looking mildly uncomfortable. Becca occupied 3 chairs, one for herself, one for her purse, and one for her phone, which was propped up on a small tripod recording everything for her followers. When I walked in, Ryan groaned. He did not even look surprised. He looked annoyed, the way you look when a fly lands on your lunch. "I told you not to come, Dad," he said. He swirled the scotch. "Jesus. Do you have zero pride? You are like a stray dog that keeps coming back to the house that kicked it out." Becca giggled. She angled her phone tripod so it captured my entrance. "Guys," she whispered to her audience. "He actually came. The man who was banned from the funeral just showed up to the will reading. This is pure delusion. Hashtag narcissist behavior." I did not respond. I walked to the far corner of the room, pulled out a simple metal folding chair that Martin had placed there by design, and sat down near the door. I folded my hands in my lap. I looked at the floor. Every movement was calculated. Every gesture reinforced the image. The weak old man. The defeated ex-husband. The nobody. Ryan turned to his lawyer. "How long is this going to take, Doug? We have a realtor coming to look at the penthouse at noon, and Becca wants to film a house tour for her channel." Fenn cleared his throat nervously. "These things are usually straightforward, Mr. Sinclair. 30 minutes, maybe an hour." Ryan clapped his hands. "Perfect. Let us get this over with." He pointed at Martin. "You, lawyer man, start reading. I want to hear the numbers." Martin took his seat at the head of the table. He placed a thick leather binder in front of him. He adjusted his reading glasses. He was in no hurry. He opened the binder with the slow precision of a surgeon. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant thrum of the city below. "We are here today for the reading of the last will and testament of Diane Elizabeth Sinclair," Martin began. His voice was level and clear. He did not look at Ryan. He did not look at me. He looked at the document as if it were sacred text. He skipped the preamble. He went straight to the asset declaration. "The estate of Diane Elizabeth Sinclair consists of the following properties and holdings." He turned a page. First, the Sinclair Boutique Hotel Collection. 4 properties located in Portland, Bend, Astoria, and Cannon Beach. Combined appraised value, $12 million. Ryan let out a low whistle. He nudged Becca. She was already doing math on her phone calculator, her eyes bright with hunger. "Second," Martin continued, "the primary residence and penthouse at the Sinclair Tower, downtown Portland. Appraised value, $3.5 million. Third, commercial real estate holdings across Multnomah and Clackamas counties. Combined appraised value, $8 million. Fourth, liquid assets including stocks, bonds, and cash accounts, totaling approximately $6.5 million. Martin looked up over his glasses. Total estimated estate value is $30 million. The number hung in the air like a detonation. Ryan slammed his palm on the table. $30 million, baby, he said. He grabbed Becca's hand and squeezed it. "We are buying the yacht. We are buying 2 yachts. Becca squealed. She grabbed her phone off the tripod and aimed it at her own face. "Oh my God, you guys," she breathed. $30 million. I am literally shaking right now. We are going to do a full life upgrade series. New house, new cars, new everything. Stay tuned." I sat in my folding chair. I did not move. I did not react. I watched my son celebrate his mother's death like it was a lottery drawing. I watched his wife broadcast their greed to the world. And I waited, because the next page in that binder was about to change the temperature in this room from cold to freezing. Martin let them celebrate for exactly 12 seconds. He was counting. I knew because I had asked him to. Let them taste it, I had said. Let them feel the money on their tongues before you take it away. 12 seconds of fantasy. Then, reality. Martin cleared his throat. He turned the page. The sound of that single sheet of paper flipping was the loudest thing in the room. It was louder than Ryan's celebration. It was louder than Becca's squealing. It was the sound of a trapdoor, opening beneath two people who thought they were standing on solid ground. However, Martin read. His voice rose just slightly on the word. Ryan froze. The Scotch glass stopped midway to his lips. The grin melted off his face like wax from a candle. However? Ryan repeated. His voice was smaller now. What do you mean, however? Martin did not answer. He simply continued reading. And the room got very, very cold. However, Martin read, all assets, properties, and financial holdings listed above shall be immediately and irrevocably transferred into the Diane Sinclair Preservation Trust. The trust is a discretionary entity established for the long-term protection and stewardship of the estate. Ryan blinked. Trust? He said. What trust? We never discussed a trust. I am the son. I am the sole heir. Just give me the check. Martin continued without pause. The beneficiary of the Diane Sinclair Preservation Trust is Ryan David Sinclair. Ryan exhaled. He slumped back in his chair. Okay. So it is in a trust. Fine. How do I access it? You do not, Martin said. He removed his glasses and placed them on the table. The trust is discretionary. The assets are controlled entirely by a trustee. You cannot sell the properties. You cannot withdraw cash. You cannot leverage the assets for loans. You receive only what the trustee decides to give you. And the trustee has established a condition. You will receive funds matched 1-to-1 with income you earn through legal employment. Maximum disbursement, $50,000 per year. 50,000? Ryan's voice cracked. Out of 30 million? That is insane. Who is the trustee? If it is you, Caldwell, you are fired. I will break this thing in a week. It is not me, Martin said. Then who? Becca shrieked. Her phone lay forgotten on the table. Who controls our money? Martin raised one finger and pointed toward the back of the room, toward the folding chair, toward me, the sole trustee, he said, with absolute and final authority over every dollar, every property, and every decision, is Harold David Sinclair. The silence was structural. It was the kind of silence that holds weight, the silence between a crack forming and a wall falling. Ryan turned his head slowly. He looked at me as if the folding chair had just caught fire. Him? Ryan whispered. My dad? The guy who clips coupons and drives a truck with rust on the fenders? That is correct, Martin said. Your father controls everything. If you want a cup of coffee, you ask him for permission to buy it. I stood up. I did not hurry. I pushed the folding chair aside, and it scraped across the floor. I straightened my spine to my full 6'2". I walked to the table with the steady gait of a man who has spent 40 years standing on scaffolding in the wind. Ryan watched me approach. His Scotch glass trembled in his hand. Martin stood and offered me his chair. Thank you, Martin, I said. I sat down. The leather was cool and firm. It fit perfectly. I opened the binder and turned to the second tab, the one marked liabilities. I put on my real prescription glasses. Let us talk about what you owe, I said. My voice was the voice I used on construction sites when a foreman tried to cut corners. Ryan. It says here you owe $1.8 million to 12 angel investors from 3 fraudulent startups. You took their money and spent it on sports gambling, online platforms. You bet on professional basketball games. Ryan went white. How do you know that? I pulled a second sheet. And $600,000 to 3 sports betting platforms, one of which is under federal investigation. You are listed as a client. I looked at Becca. And Becca, I will be conducting a full financial review of all household expenditures connected to this estate. If funds have been indirectly misappropriated, there will be consequences. Ryan jumped to his feet. His chair crashed against the window behind him. You cannot do this, he screamed. It is my money. She was my mother. You were nothing to her. She threw you away. I looked at my son. I felt no triumph. I felt the weight of 40 years pressing on my shoulders. But I also felt Diane beside me, her voice in my ear, steady and clear. Request denied, I said. Ryan stared at me for 3 long seconds. Then he grabbed his jacket and pointed a shaking finger at my face. I will destroy you, old man. You have no idea what I am capable of. He stormed to the door, ripped it open, and turned back. One last time. This is not over. The door slammed. Becca scrambled after him, knocking both champagne bottles off the table. They shattered on the floor like 2 small explosions. Then silence. I sat alone at the head of the table. Martin stood by the window, watching the river below. He opened his laptop. A notification pulsed on the screen. He turned it toward me. System alert. Mirror protocol activated. Monitoring has begun. Diane had built the mirror system in the final year of her life. 5 triggers. 5 reflections. Each one activated by a specific action Ryan might take after her death. Each reflection designed not to punish but to reveal, to show him the truth about himself in a way he could not deny or spin or buy his way out of. She had predicted his moves with the precision of a chess grandmaster who knows her opponent better than he knows himself. Ryan did not know it yet. But his threat, his rage, his promise to destroy me had just set the first domino in motion. Within 72 hours, he would attempt to hack the trust accounts. And when he did, Mirror 1 would activate. His entire digital history, every gambling transaction, every fraudulent email, every lie he had told his investors would be delivered directly to the 12 people he had stolen from. I closed the binder. I buttoned my jacket. I looked at the shattered champagne on the floor and the scotch stains spreading across the walnut table. The war had begun. But I was not fighting with emotion. I was fighting with architecture, with load calculations and stress tolerances, and the patient certainty of a man who knows exactly how much pressure a failing structure can endure before it comes down. Ryan's structure was already cracking. I just had to wait for gravity. 3 days of silence. That is how long it took. I knew it would not be longer than a week. Ryan was not a patient man. Patience requires discipline, and discipline requires a foundation. He had neither. He had rage and a laptop, and the delusion that technology could solve problems that were built into his character. I was in my apartment in Selwood when it happened. 2:14 in the morning. I was not asleep. I had not slept well since the funeral. Not because of fear, but because the bed felt wider now. For 9 years I had known that Diane was out there somewhere in the same city, breathing the same air, waiting for Sunday. Now Sunday meant nothing. The weeks had lost their architecture. My laptop chimed. A soft tone. The sound Diane's security team had programmed for intrusion alerts. I opened the screen. The notification was clinical. Unauthorized access attempt detected. Source IP address, Portland metropolitan area. Target, Diane Sinclair Preservation Trust primary account. Method, brute force credential attack via third-party proxy. He had hired a hacker. A local one, cheap enough to find on the dark web, expensive enough to feel professional. The attack was clumsy. It was the digital equivalent of a man trying to kick down a steel door while wearing slippers. The system Diane had built was military-grade encryption, managed by a cybersecurity firm in Seattle. The hacker never had a chance. But that was not the point. The point was that Ryan had tried. And trying was the trigger. I watched the screen as the mirror system processed the breach attempt. A countdown appeared. Mirror 1. Activation in progress. Delivery. In 24 hours. Target recipients. 12. I closed the laptop. I made a cup of tea. I sat in the dark and waited for my son's world to begin its collapse. The next evening, Martin called. "It is done," he said. His voice was quiet but precise. The system delivered the package at 6 p.m. 12 emails, each one containing a complete forensic report of Ryan's digital activity for the past 3 years. "What exactly did they receive?" I asked. "Everything," Martin said. "Every sports betting transaction. Every login to every gambling platform. Every internal email from his startups, where he admitted to investors that the products did not work. There is one email in particular where he tells a friend, and I quote, 'These idiots will throw money at anything with a logo. I have been using their seed funding to bet on the Blazers.' I closed my eyes. I did not feel satisfaction. I felt the heaviness of watching something you built fall apart. Even when the thing falling apart was not yours. Even when it needed to fall. "How are the investors responding?" I asked. 3 have already filed civil suits," Martin said. That brings his total litigation exposure to $3.2 million. 2 others have contacted the district attorney's office. There may be criminal fraud charges within 90 days. I thanked Martin and hung up. I sat in the silence of my small apartment. The refrigerator hummed. The rain tapped against the window. I thought about Ryan at 27, standing on the other end of a phone line, threatening to jump off a bridge. I thought about him at 36, hiring a stranger to break into his dead mother's accounts. The progression was not surprising. It was structural. A beam that is loaded beyond capacity does not suddenly snap. It bends slowly, imperceptibly, over years. And then one day, it fails completely. My phone rang at 2 in the morning. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Dad." Ryan's voice was wrecked. It sounded like he had been screaming for hours. "What did you do?" "They are suing me. All of them." 12 emails went out with my entire browsing history. My gambling records. Everything. "What did you do?" "I did nothing," I said calmly. "I did not send those emails." "Then who?" he screamed. "Who has that kind of access?" "Your mother," I said. The line went silent. I could hear him breathing, ragged and wet. "Your mother built a system, Ryan, before she died. A mirror. Every action you take has a reflection. You tried to break into the trust. The trust reflected your own history back at the people you stole from. I did not choose the consequence. She did." "That is insane," he whispered. "She is dead. Dead people do not send emails. They do, when they spend a year programming a system designed to protect their son from himself." I replied. He hung up without another word. I put the phone down and returned to my tea. It was cold. I drank it anyway. Cold tea was a small discomfort. Ryan was about to learn what real discomfort felt like. The next morning, I checked Becca's social media. Not because I enjoyed it, but because Diane had taught me to watch the edges while the center was burning. Becca had posted a photo the previous afternoon, a new handbag. The brand name was Italian. The price, if my research was correct, was approximately $8,000. I stared at the photo. Ryan was drowning in debt. They had been locked out of the trust. They had no legal income that could support an $8,000 purchase. The money was coming from somewhere. I called Martin. "I need a forensic review of Rebecca Bishop Sinclair's personal finances," I said. "Separate from Ryan's accounts. Look for a secondary account. Something hidden. Martin called back 4 hours later. His voice had the quiet edge of a man who has found something ugly under a rock. She has a personal account at a credit union in Beaverton, he said. Under her maiden name. Current balance, $203,000. The deposits are irregular. Cash and transfers from a third-party account registered to a Jason Park. Jason Park. I repeated. The name surfaced in my memory like a bubble from deep water. He was Ryan's former business partner. The one who walked away from the second startup before it imploded. The one Ryan still called a friend. That is correct, Martin said. Park and Mrs. Sinclair appear to have a financial relationship that predates the trust dispute by approximately 8 months. I sat with that information. I did not act on it. Not yet. Mirror 2 was already armed. It would activate when Ryan filed his competency lawsuit. And when it did, the truth about Becca and Jason Park would be delivered directly to Ryan's inbox. Not by me. By Diane. By the mirror his mother had built to show him every crack in the foundation he thought was solid. I put the phone down. Outside, the Portland rain continued to fall. Somewhere across the city, my son was discovering that 12 people now had proof of his fraud. His debts were multiplying. His wife was hiding $200,000 and a secret that would shatter whatever remained of his trust in her. And the mirror had only shown its first reflection. The headline appeared on a Tuesday morning. I was eating oatmeal at my kitchen table when my phone began buzzing with notifications I had not asked for. Strangers were tagging me in posts. People I had never met were writing my name in capital letters, followed by words like monster and abuser and thief. I picked up the phone and read the headline that had started it all. Elderly man holds son's $30 million inheritance hostage. Grieving family speaks out. Becca had fired the first shot. She had gone live the night before, sitting on the floor of what I assumed was her parents' living room. She wore no makeup. Her hair was unwashed. She was wearing an oversized gray sweatshirt that made her look small and vulnerable. It was a costume. Every detail chosen for maximum sympathy. You guys, she whispered to the camera, her voice cracking at precisely the right moments. I did not want to go public with this, but I am scared. We are scared. My husband's father, Harold Sinclair, is holding our entire inheritance hostage. He is using his position as trustee to financially abuse us. He laughed when he denied us access to our own money. He is a narcissist, a predator who controlled his wife for decades and is now trying to control us. The viewer count climbed as I watched the archived recording. 40,000. 60,000. The comments poured in like sewage from a broken main. Someone find this guy. Expose him. Old men like this need to be stopped. I hope someone teaches him a lesson. I put the phone down. I finished my oatmeal. I washed the bowl. I dried it and placed it back in the cabinet. Then I sat at my desk and thought about wind loads. When I designed the Astoria Bay Bridge in 1987, we faced Category 4 winds during construction. The crew wanted to stop. They wanted to wait for calm weather. I told them we do not build for calm weather. We build for the storm. You cannot control what the wind does. You can only control the integrity of the steel. Becca was the wind. She was loud and destructive and completely beyond my control. But I was steel. And steel does not argue with the wind. It simply stands. By Wednesday, the situation had escalated. My apartment building was surrounded by news vans. A reporter knocked on my door at 7 in the morning asking for a comment. I did not answer. I packed a bag and moved to a hotel downtown. A clean, quiet place with room service and blackout curtains. I needed a base of operations, not a stage. Martin called that afternoon. His voice was tight. They filed this morning, he said. Ryan has submitted a petition for emergency guardianship. He is claiming you are mentally incompetent, that you have dementia and are unfit to manage the trust. On what basis? I asked. I was sitting in the hotel room drinking tea, watching the city below through a gap in the curtains. He has an affidavit from a Dr. Thomas Rowe, psychiatrist. The affidavit claims Rowe conducted an evaluation and found significant cognitive decline, paranoid ideation, early onset dementia. I have never met a Dr. Rowe in my life, I said. I know, Martin replied. Rowe is a hired gun. He has been flagged by the state medical board twice for providing fraudulent evaluations in custody disputes. He will sign anything for the right price. How much did Ryan pay him? Based on Rowe's usual rate, Martin said, probably around $50,000. Money he does not have, which means he borrowed it, which means he is sinking deeper. I took a sip of tea. It was still hot. The ceramic was warm against my palms. What is our timeline? The hearing is set for next week, Martin said. Judge Patricia Okonkwo. She is smart, and she does not tolerate theatrics. But Harold, the optics are bad. You have the entire internet calling you a monster. If Ryan puts on a good performance in that courtroom, if he cries and says the right things, there is a chance the judge will at least order a temporary freeze on the trust pending evaluation. Let him file, I said. Let him put Rowe on the stand. Let him perform. Martin hesitated. You are not concerned? I am an engineer, Martin. I do not worry about what the wind does. I worry about what the foundation is made of. And mine is made of reinforced concrete and 30 years of documented competency. I paused. Besides, he just triggered Mirror 2. Martin was quiet for a moment. His marriage, he said softly. His marriage, I confirmed. Or whatever is left of it. The moment he files that competency petition, the system delivers the evidence about Becca directly to his inbox. Bank statements, transfer records, and the photographs. The photographs of Becca and Jason Park? Martin asked. Every single one, I said. Time-stamped and geotagged. 8 months of meetings at the same hotel in Lake Oswego. 8 months of $200 transfers from Park's account to her hidden fund. She has been building an escape hatch with his former business partner, while simultaneously helping him spend money they do not have. Martin let out a long breath. That is going to destroy him, he said. No, I replied. It is going to isolate him. There is a difference. A destroyed man gives up. An isolated man gets desperate. And a desperate man makes the kind of mistakes that end up in court transcripts. I need him desperate, Martin. I need him to swing wildly. Because Mirror 3 requires testimony under oath, and he is only going to lie under oath if he believes he has nothing left to lose. You are playing a dangerous game, Harold. I am not playing a game, I said. I am following my wife's blueprint. She designed the sequence. She predicted his behavior. I am just the engineer, executing the plan. I hung up. I turned off my phone. The noise of the world, the hashtags, the headlines, the hatred of strangers who had never met me, all of it fell away. I did not need their approval. I did not need their understanding. I needed only one thing. I needed my son to keep being exactly who he was. Because every move he made, every lie he told, every bridge he burned, was bringing him one step closer to the reflection he could not escape. I finished my tea. I turned off the lamp. In the darkness of the hotel room, I could hear the distant sound of protesters outside the building. Someone had found my location. They were chanting something I could not quite make out. I did not go to the window. I did not need to see them. Storms pass. Foundations remain. Mirror 2 did not explode. It slid in like a blade between ribs. Quiet. Precise. Lethal to the thing it was designed to kill, which was not a person, but a partnership. The system delivered the package at 6:22 on a Thursday evening. I know the exact time because Martin's monitoring software logged the transmission. One email to Ryan's personal inbox. Subject line: Trust compliance audit. Financial irregularities detected. It looked official. It looked like routine paperwork. Ryan would have opened it, thinking it was another legal headache from the trust. What he found inside was something else entirely. The email contained 3 attachments. The first was a 12-page bank statement from a credit union in Beaverton, Oregon. The account was registered under the name Rebecca Marie Bishop, not Sinclair. Bishop, her maiden name. The statement showed a running balance that had grown steadily over 8 months from $0 to $203,000. The deposits were irregular, but consistent. Cash drops of $500 to $2,000, and wire transfers from a personal account belonging to Jason Park. The second attachment was a series of photographs. 17 images time-stamped over a period of 8 months. Becca and Jason Park entering the same hotel in Lake Oswego. Becca and Jason Park at a restaurant in the Pearl District. Becca and Jason Park sitting in a parked car at the waterfront, her hand on his arm, his face turned toward hers. The third attachment was a single audio file, 43 seconds long. Becca's voice, recorded from a voicemail she had accidentally left on Park's phone 6 months earlier. "Hey babe, Ryan is at the casino again. I will be at the hotel by 8. I booked our usual room. Miss you. I did not hear the detonation. I did not need to. I was sitting in my hotel room eating a sandwich when Martin called at 8:45 that night. It is happening," Martin said. His voice was subdued, the way a surgeon sounds when he tells you the operation was successful but the recovery will be painful. "What did he do?" I asked. "He drove to the condo," Martin said. He confronted her. The neighbors called the police at 8:15. There was screaming, objects being thrown. When the officers arrived, Becca was outside on the sidewalk with a suitcase and a bloody lip. She said she fell. He said she fell. But the officers documented the scene. I put my sandwich down. "Is she safe?" "She left in a taxi," Martin said. "She went to her parents' house in Teagard. Ryan is alone in the condo. He has been calling your number every 3 minutes since 9 o'clock. I have not answered. I sat with that. I sat with the image of my son, alone in a condo he could not afford, surrounded by the wreckage of a marriage that had been built on the same fraudulent foundation as his startups. I did not feel victory. I felt the cold arithmetic of cause and effect. Diane had designed Mirror 2, not to punish Becca, but to isolate Ryan, to strip away the one person who was reinforcing his delusions. Becca had been his enabler, his audience, his co-conspirator. Without her, he was just a man standing in an empty room with his own reflection. My phone rang at 11:47. I answered. "Dad." Ryan's voice was raw, stripped of performance, stripped of posture. It was the voice of a man who had been crying for hours and had nothing left to produce. "Did you know?" he asked. "Did Mom know about Becca?" "Your mother knew everything, Ryan," I said. I kept my voice level. Not cruel, not kind, just level. The way a steel beam is level. "She knew about Becca before you did." "How?" he whispered. "Because she watched," I said. "The way she always watched. She loved you enough to see the truth about the people around you, even when you refused to see it yourself. The mirror does not create truth, Ryan. It only shows what is already there." There was a long silence on the line. I could hear him breathing. I could hear the emptiness of that condo echoing behind him. No television, no music, no Becca filling the space with her constant noise. Then his voice changed. The rawness hardened. The grief curdled into something darker. "I do not care," he said. His tone was flat and cold. "I do not care about Becca. I do not care about Jason Park. That does not change anything. You still stole my inheritance. You still locked me out of my own mother's money." "I did not steal anything," I said. "I am following the terms of the trust." "The terms are insane," he snapped. "Matching my income, $50,000 a year maximum? That is a joke. I am supposed to work some minimum wage job and wait for you to match pennies while $30 million sits in a vault? That is exactly what you are supposed to do, I said. His breathing got heavier. I could hear his jaw clenching through the phone. Fine, he said. You want a war? You have got one. I am going to prove to that judge you are insane. I have Roe's evaluation. I have public testimony. Half the internet thinks you are a monster. And when that courtroom hears what you have done, they will hand me guardianship, and I will dismantle that trust board by board. He paused. And then I am going to burn everything Mom built. Every hotel. Every property. If I cannot have it the way I want it, nobody will have it at all. The line went dead. I held the phone in my hand for a long time. The screen faded to black. I set it on the table and stared at the wall. Somewhere in the system I knew. A new notification had appeared on Martin's monitoring dashboard. Mirror 3. Armed. Trigger condition. Testimony under oath. During competency proceedings, Ryan thought he was going to walk into that courtroom and perform. He thought tears and a doctor's note would be enough to take my freedom. He did not know that his mother had recorded 3 phone calls. 3 calls where he stood on the edge of a bridge and used his own life as a bargaining chip. 3 calls that would play in that courtroom and show the judge exactly who was manipulating whom. I turned off the light. I lay in the dark. The protesters outside had gone home. The city was quiet. But I could not sleep, because somewhere across Portland, my son was alone for the first time in his adult life, and a man alone with his own failures, with no one left to blame, is either on the edge of salvation or the edge of something far worse. I did not know which way he would fall. I only knew that the mirror was watching, and it never blinked. The Multnomah County Courthouse smelled of floor wax and old decisions. I had been in this building before, decades ago, filing permits for bridge reinforcements along the waterfront. Back then it smelled like bureaucracy. Today it smelled like judgment. I arrived early. Martin was already waiting in the hallway outside courtroom C, holding a leather briefcase and wearing the expression of a man who had not slept but was running on something stronger than caffeine. He was running on certainty. We reviewed the file one last time, he said as I approached. Everything is loaded and ready. The recordings are authenticated. Chain of custody is airtight. I nodded. I straightened my tie. I had worn a better suit today. Not new, but well fitted. I wanted to look competent. I wanted the judge to see me and see exactly what I was. A man in full control of his faculties. Outside the courtroom, a small crowd had gathered. Supporters of Ryan, most of them followers of Becca's social media campaign. They held signs. Free Ryan Sinclair. Stop elder financial abuse. One of them spat at my feet as I walked past. I did not acknowledge it. Engineers do not argue with weather. Inside, the courtroom was half full. Judge Patricia Okonkwo sat at the bench, a tall woman with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had a reputation for efficiency and an absolute intolerance for performance. Ryan sat at the petitioner's table. He was alone. No Becca beside him. No team of supporters. Just him and a new lawyer. A young woman from a mid-sized firm who had taken the case pro bono for the publicity. Ryan looked thin. He had not shaved well, but he was wearing a soft gray sweater and glasses I had never seen him wear before. He looked gentle. He looked wounded. It was a costume. Just like Becca's gray sweatshirt had been a costume. Dr. Thomas Rowe took the stand first. He was a short man with a receding hairline and a thin sheen of sweat on his upper lip. He held his clipboard like a shield. In my professional assessment, Rowe said, adjusting his glasses for the 3rd time in 2 minutes, Mr. Harold Sinclair exhibits clear signs of paranoid ideation and early cognitive decline. His decision-making capacity is severely compromised. He is unable to manage complex financial instruments and poses a risk to himself and others. Martin did not object. He sat quietly, taking notes. I sat beside him, hands folded, breathing evenly. Let them build their tower, Martin had said that morning. The higher they build it, the more spectacular the fall. Ryan took the stand next. He cried. It was not the explosive sobbing of a man in genuine pain. It was the controlled, photogenic weeping of someone who had practiced in a mirror. My father is sick, Ryan said into the microphone, his voice quivering with rehearsed emotion. He does not know what he is doing. He is paranoid. He thinks everyone is out to get him. He called me a thief. He said my mother hated me. He needs help. I just want him to get the help he deserves. I watched the judge. She was watching Ryan the way a structural engineer watches a load test, looking for the flex point, looking for the moment the beam bends too far. The young lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client simply wants his father to receive proper medical care. The trust contains $30 million. A man suffering from dementia should not have sole authority over that sum. We request temporary guardianship and an independent medical evaluation. The judge turned to Martin. Response? Martin stood. He buttoned his jacket with a slow, deliberate motion. Your Honor, the petitioner claims my client suffers from cognitive decline. We dispute that claim entirely. But rather than present our own medical evaluation, which we are prepared to do, I would like to present evidence that speaks to the character and credibility of this petition. He walked to the evidence table. He picked up a small device and held it up. This is a digital audio recording authenticated by forensic analysis and preserved under legal chain of custody since its creation. There are 3 recordings in total. They document phone calls made by the petitioner, Ryan David Sinclair, to the deceased, Diane Elizabeth Sinclair, over a period of 3 years. Ryan's lawyer jumped up. Objection. Relevance. These proceedings concern the respondent's mental capacity, not the petitioner's character. Judge Okonkwo looked at Martin over her glasses. Counselor, what is the relevance? Your Honor, Martin said calmly. These recordings demonstrate a pattern of emotional extortion by the petitioner against the deceased. They directly contradict the narrative that Mr. Seiksef, that Mr. Modisef. Sinclair is a concerned son acting in his father's best interest. They show that the petitioner has a documented history of using threats of self-harm to manipulate family members for financial gain. I will allow it, the judge said. Play the recordings. Martin pressed play. The courtroom speakers crackled to life. Then Ryan's voice filled the room. It was younger, raw, but unmistakably his. Mom, if you do not wire me $200,000 by midnight, I am driving to the Morrison Bridge. I am standing on it right now. I will jump. I swear to God I will jump. The courtroom went still. Ryan's face drained of color. His rehearsed grief evaporated like steam off hot concrete. The second recording played. Same voice. Different date. Same threat. $150,000 this time. The third recording. $300,000. Same bridge. Same deadline. Sama script. When the audio ended, the silence was heavy enough to feel in your chest. Judge Okonkwo leaned forward. She looked at Ryan, the way you look at a crack in a load-bearing wall. Mr. Sinclair, she said. Her voice was ice. These recordings suggest a sustained pattern of emotional extortion against your deceased mother. They suggest you use threats of suicide as a financial weapon. She paused. This court does not find credible evidence of cognitive decline in the respondent. Case dismissed. She turned to the bailiff. Additionally, please forward the affidavit of Dr. Thomas Rowe to the State Medical Board for review. The testimony provided today raises serious questions about the integrity of his evaluation. Ryan erupted. He slammed both fists on the table. She owed me, he screamed. I am her son. That money is mine. I earned it. His lawyer grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back down. He shook her off. He pointed at me. "You set me up," he yelled. "You and that dead woman set me up." This was planned. "Order!" Judge Okonkwo commanded. She banged her gavel twice. The bailiffs moved toward Ryan. He sat down, shaking, his chest heaving. His glasses had fallen off. Without them, he did not look gentle anymore. He looked exactly like what he was. The judge spoke one more time. "Mr. Sinclair, I strongly suggest you retain new legal counsel and reconsider your approach to this matter. This court is adjourned." I stood. I gathered my jacket. I did not look at Ryan. I walked out of the courtroom with Martin at my side. The hallway was bright and loud with the murmur of people who had just watched something crack in half. "Well," Martin said, "that went about as well as it could." I nodded. But I was not thinking about the victory. I was thinking about Ryan's face when the recordings played. The look in his eyes was not anger. It was recognition. He knew those calls were real. He knew what he had done. And for the first time, he could not pretend otherwise. The mirror had shown him his third reflection. And this time, the whole courtroom was watching. The parking garage beneath the courthouse was cold and gray. Concrete pillars. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The kind of place that swallows sound and spits back echoes. I was walking toward my truck, keys in hand. When the footsteps behind me quickened, I did not turn around. I kept walking. An engineer learns early in his career that when you hear something crack above you on a job site, you do not look up. You move. But I was 70 years old, and my knees were not what they used to be. "Dad." The voice bounced off the concrete walls. I stopped. Not because the voice commanded me to stop, but because it sounded different. The performance was gone. The tears were gone. The rage from the courtroom had burned itself out. What remained was something quieter and far more unsettling. I turned. Ryan stood 15 feet away, half hidden by a concrete pillar. His gray sweater was untucked. His fake glasses were gone. He looked smaller without them. He looked like a man who had run out of costumes. "What do you want, Ryan?" I asked. My voice echoed in the empty garage. He stepped forward. His hands were in his pockets. His shoulders were hunched. He was not threatening. He was not performing. He was just standing there, looking at me with an expression I could not immediately categorize. It was not anger. It was not grief. It was something closer to resignation. The look of a man standing at the edge of something and deciding whether to speak the truth for the first time in his life. "There is something you do not know," he said. His voice was low and flat. Something Mom did not know either. Or maybe she did. Maybe that is why she built all of this. He gestured vaguely at the air, meaning the trust, the mirrors, all of it. "What are you talking about?" I asked. He looked at the concrete floor. He swallowed. "I did something, Dad. Before she died. Something bad." He looked up. His eyes were red, but dry. No tears left. "You think you know everything. You think those recordings and those emails and those bank statements are the whole story. They are not. There is one more thing. And when you find out what it is, all of this, the trust, the mirrors, your righteous little war, none of it will feel like victory." He turned and walked away. His footsteps echoed and faded. The stairwell door opened and closed with a metallic clang. Then, silence. I stood alone in the parking garage. My keys were still in my hand. The fluorescent light above me flickered once, then steadied. I did not move for a long time. I drove back to the hotel. The city slid past my windows in a blur of gray and green. Portland in autumn was beautiful in a melancholy way. The trees along Burnside were shedding gold and copper leaves into the gutter. The river moved slow and dark beneath the bridges. My bridges. The ones I had designed and built and trusted to hold. I parked. I went to my room. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. Ryan's words played on a loop in my head. "I did something. Before she died." Something bad. I thought back. I forced myself to think back to the last months of Diane's life. She had been declining. The doctors said her heart was failing faster than expected. The cardiologist used the word inexplicable. He said her medication should have been managing the condition effectively. He said he could not explain the sudden acceleration. At the time, I accepted it. People die. Hearts fail. Medicine is not a perfect science. But now, sitting in this hotel room with Ryan's words hanging in the air like smoke after an explosion, I began to reassemble the pieces. Diane's decline started approximately 5 weeks before she noticed. 5 weeks where she felt tired, but blamed it on stress. 5 weeks where her medication was not working, because it was not her medication. I stood up. I walked to the window. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass. The city lights blurred through the condensation. "No," I whispered. "No, he would not." But I knew he would. I knew because Diane knew. She had built the mirror system not as a game, but as a containment protocol. She had built it because she understood exactly what her son was capable of. She had always understood. She just loved him too much to say it out loud. I did not sleep that night. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the building breathe around me. I thought about phone calls and bridges and pills and all the different ways a son can kill his mother without leaving a mark. At 6:17 the next morning, my laptop chimed. Not the intrusion alert. A different tone. Lower. More deliberate. I opened the screen. An email from the mirror system. The subject line was different from the others. It did not say activation or delivery or compliance. It said something I had never seen before. Mirror 4. Manual activation required. Warning. Contents may cause permanent emotional damage to trustee. Authorization needed. Proceed? I stared at the screen. My hand hovered over the trackpad. The cursor blinked over the word proceed. Diane had programmed this. She had written that warning knowing that I would be the one reading it. She was protecting me. Even from beyond the grave, she was trying to shield me from the things she already knew. I thought about not opening it. I thought about closing the laptop and walking away and letting the truth stay buried with her. But I was an engineer. And engineers do not leave cracks uninspected. We do not pretend a fracture is not there because looking at it might hurt. We look. We measure. We document. And then we decide what needs to be torn down and what can still be saved. I clicked proceed. The screen changed. A video player loaded. A single file. Runtime, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The thumbnail showed Diane sitting in her library armchair. Oxygen tube in her nose. A blanket over her lap. Her eyes sharp as cut glass. I pressed play. Diane appeared on the screen. She was sitting in the library armchair at the mansion. The green velvet one she had bought at an estate sale in Florence 30 years ago. The oxygen tube ran from her nose to a portable tank beside the chair. A blanket covered her legs. Her hair was thinner than I remembered. Her cheeks were hollow, but her eyes were the same. Green and sharp and filled with intelligence that does not fade even when the body is failing. "My name is Diane Elizabeth Sinclair," she said. Her voice was raspy but steady. "Today is September 28th. If you are watching this, Harold, I am gone. And if you are watching this, it means Mirror 4 has been activated, which means Ryan has escalated beyond financial crimes, which means you need to know what I am about to tell you." She adjusted the oxygen tube. Her hands were thin, the veins visible beneath papery skin. "I kept this from you," she said. "I kept it because I did not want you to hate our son. I thought maybe I could handle it alone. Fix it alone. But some things cannot be fixed. They can only be documented." She looked directly into the camera. "Through time, through death, through the glass of my laptop screen. 6 weeks ago," she said, "I noticed my medication tasted different. My heart pills. The ones I take every morning. They are small and white and slightly bitter. I have taken them for 4 years. I know what they taste like. One morning, they tasted like nothing. Like chalk. Like vitamins. My chest tightened. I took one to my pharmacist, Diane continued. He confirmed. They were not my cardiac medication. They were a generic multivitamin. Same size. Same color. Different contents. I had my security team check the house cameras. The footage showed Ryan entering the house 3 weeks before the switch. He went to my bathroom. He was in there for 4 minutes. He did not know about the cameras in the upstairs hallway. She wiped her eyes. Her hand trembled. I went back to my cardiologist. 5 weeks without proper medication. He said the damage was irreversible. The muscle had weakened beyond recovery. My timeline had shortened considerably. I was crying. I did not realize it until I felt the wetness on my jaw. I had not cried since the funeral. I had not cried when my son called me a parasite. But this broke something inside me that I did not know could still break. "I am dying, Harold," Diane said. Her voice cracked. "And our son is the reason." He did not hold a gun to my head. He quietly replaced my medication with sugar pills and waited for my heart to give out. Because he wanted the money faster. Because the gamblers were closing in. She looked away from the camera. When she looked back, her face held something harder. "I forgave him," she said. "Not because what he did was forgivable, but because holding hatred for your own child is a poison that kills faster than any pill. I forgave him so I could think clearly, so I could build the mirror system without rage clouding the architecture." She leaned forward. "The mirror is not about revenge, Harold. It is about containment. Making sure the man who could do this to his mother cannot do it to anyone else. Use Mirror 5 only if he becomes physically dangerous. Only if he threatens life. Promise me you will not use it out of anger. Only out of necessity." She sat back, exhausted. "I love you, Harold. I am sorry I left you alone with this. You were always the foundation. Be the foundation one more time. Break him if you have to. But remember why. Not because he deserves punishment. Because he deserves to be stopped before he destroys himself completely." The screen went black. The hotel room was silent, except for rain against the window and the ragged sound of my own breathing. I sat motionless. The light changed outside. The room grew brighter, then dimmer. I did not move. I understood stress loads. I understood the pressure a material can absorb before permanent deformation. I had just exceeded my capacity. Something inside me had bent and would never straighten. When I could finally move, my phone said 2:47 in the afternoon. Over 8 hours of stillness. I dialed Martin. "Harold," he said carefully. "You opened it." I opened it. My voice sounded foreign. "I am sorry," Martin said. "Add charges to the case file," I said. "Voluntary manslaughter. Or whatever the DA will accept, given that the victim refused to press charges before her death. I want it on record. Harold, this changes everything. Financial fraud becomes homicide. He killed my wife." "Martin." The words came out flat and final. "He killed her for money. Put it on record." "I will file in the morning," Martin said. "Do we arrest him?" "Not yet. I need one more thing first. I need him to know that she knew. I need to see his face when he realizes his mother watched him switch those pills and chose to forgive him anyway. That will break him more than any prison cell." I hung up. I sat in the dark. Somewhere across this city, my son believed he had gotten away with it. He believed his mother died ignorant. He was wrong. She knew. She always knew. And the weight of knowing was almost more than this old foundation could bear. A week passed. I did not contact Ryan. I did not file the arrest warrant. I waited. Not out of mercy, but out of engineering instinct. When a structure is failing, you do not add force. You observe. You measure the rate of collapse, you calculate the trajectory, and you position yourself to catch whatever needs catching before it hits the ground. Martin sent me daily reports. Monday. Becca's divorce filing was processed by the court. She had retained a lawyer in Tigard using funds from the Jason Park account. The filing cited irreconcilable differences. She requested no alimony, no property division, nothing. She wanted out clean. She wanted distance. That told me everything about how much she knew. She was not just leaving a marriage. She was fleeing a crime scene. Tuesday. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings on Ryan's condo in the Pearl District. He had missed 3 mortgage payments. The notices had been piling up, unopened, on the kitchen counter. Without Becca's income from her coaching courses, there was no cash flow. Without the trust, there was no safety net. The bank gave him 14 days to vacate. Wednesday. His pro bono lawyer withdrew from the case. She issued a statement citing ethical concerns. In plain language, she had discovered her client was facing potential homicide charges and wanted no association with the fallout. Thursday. 2 of the 12 investors won their civil suits by default. Ryan had failed to appear in court. The judgments totaled $900,000. Combined with the existing debt, his total exposure now exceeded $4 million. He had no assets. He had no income. He had no legal representation. Friday. Silence. No filings. No calls. No social media activity. Ryan had gone dark. I called Martin. "Where is he?" I asked. Martin checked the GPS data from the ankle monitor. Ryan had been ordered to wear it, as a condition of bail, from the civil contempt charge. It was a small device, easily forgotten, which is exactly why it was so useful. "He is at a motel," Martin said. "The Evergreen Lodge on Southeast 82nd Avenue. He checked in 2 days ago. Paid cash for a week. He has not left the room since." I knew that motel. It was the kind of place that asked no questions and accepted no credit cards. It was where people went when they had nowhere else, when the world had closed every door, and the only thing left was a thin mattress and a television bolted to the wall. "Has he eaten?" I asked. "The motel manager says he has not seen him leave the room," Martin said. Housekeeping knocked twice. No answer. I sat with that information. I thought about what I should feel. I had spent weeks watching my son dismantle his own life piece by piece. I had watched him lose his wife, his home, his lawyers, his freedom. I had watched every pillar he had built his identity on crumble into dust. And now he was lying in a dark room somewhere on the east side, disappearing. Part of me, the engineer, said let the structure fall. It was compromised. It was dangerous. It needed to come down completely before anything new could be built. But another part of me, the part that remembered a small boy running down the stairs on Christmas morning, that part said something different. That part said, "Go get him." I did not go. Not yet. I was not ready. I was still carrying the weight of Diane's video. I was still trying to reconcile the son who had taught himself to ride a bicycle at age 5 with the man who had switched his mother's heart pills for vitamins. Those two people could not coexist in my mind. The boy and the monster. They occupied the same body, but not the same universe. Saturday. Nothing. Sunday. I went to the morning bridge. I sat in our booth. I ordered 2 coffees out of habit. Elena set both mugs on the table without comment. I stared at the empty seat across from me and spoke to it. "What do I do, Di?" I whispered. "He killed you. He killed you. And he is still my son. How do I hold both of those things?" The coffee grew cold. No answer came. The dead keep their own counsel. I drove back to the hotel. It was late. The city was quiet. I opened my laptop to check the GPS one final time before bed. The blue dot that represented my son's location had been stationary for 3 days. I expected it to be in the same place, the motel on 82nd. It was not. The dot was moving, slowly at first, then faster. It was heading west, along Powell Boulevard. Then, it turned north on Naito Parkway. It was moving toward the river, toward the bridges. I felt the cold hit my stomach before the thought fully formed. I zoomed in on the map. The dot was crossing into the waterfront district. It was not heading toward the Hawthorne Bridge or the Steel Bridge or any of the newer crossings. It was heading directly toward the Morrison Bridge. The Morrison Bridge. The bridge Ryan had threatened to jump from 9 years ago. The bridge he had used as a weapon against his mother 3 times. The bridge I had redesigned the support cables for in 1994. I was already standing. I was already grabbing my keys. My heart was hammering against my ribs with a force I had not felt in years. I did not call the police. I did not call Martin. There was no time for systems or protocols or mirrors. There was only a father and a bridge and the terrible mathematics of distance divided by time. I ran out the door. I ran down the hallway. I slammed through the stairwell because the elevator was too slow. I was 70 years old, and I was running like the building was on fire, because it was. My son was the building, and he was on fire. The Morrison Bridge at 11:47 on a Sunday night is a lonely place. The traffic is thin. The streetlights cast circles of yellow onto wet pavement. The Willamette River runs black and silent below, swallowing whatever the city drops into it without comment. I have driven across this bridge 10,000 times. I redesigned its cable supports in 1994. I know its weight tolerances, its flex points, its load-bearing limits down to the decimal. But tonight, the only load that mattered was the one standing on the wrong side of the railing. I saw him in there. A dark shape against the glow of the city skyline. He was standing on the narrow maintenance ledge beyond the pedestrian barrier, his hands gripping the rail behind him, his body leaning forward over the water. The wind off the river was pushing at his jacket. His hair was wild. He was not wearing a coat. I pulled the truck to the curb. I did not slam the door. I did not run. Running would startle him. Running would add force to a structure already at its breaking point. I walked. Steady. Even. The way you walk on a beam 40 stories above the ground. 1 foot in front of the other. Eyes forward. Weight. Centered. I stopped 10 feet from him. The railing was between us. He was on the outside. I was on the inside. The river murmured below, indifferent and cold. "Ryan," I said. My voice was calm, not gentle, not harsh, just present, like a hand reaching out in the dark without grabbing. He did not turn around. His fingers were white on the railing. His shoulders were shaking. I could hear his breathing, shallow and fast. The breathing of a man who has been standing on the edge for a long time and is running out of reasons to keep holding on. "Go away, Dad," he said. His voice was barely audible above the wind. "Just go away. Let me do this." "I am not going anywhere," I said. He let out a sound. Not a laugh. Not a sob. Something between. A cracked, empty noise. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you stay? You hate me. Mom hated me. Everyone hates me. Becca took my money and left. The investors are going to put me in prison. You are going to put me in prison. There is nothing left." I leaned against the railing. I did not try to grab him. I did not crowd him. I just stood there, my forearms resting on the cold metal, looking out at the same dark water he was looking at. "I do not hate you, Ryan," I said. He finally turned his head. His face was gaunt. His eyes were swollen. He had been crying for days, maybe longer. There was no mask left, no costume, no performance. Just a 36-year-old man who had destroyed everything he had ever touched and was now standing at the end of the road with nowhere to go but down. "She knew," he whispered. "Mom knew, didn't she? About the pills." It was not a question. His voice was flat with certainty. I could have lied. I could have said no. But Diane had asked me to be the mirror, and mirrors do not lie. Yes, I said. She knew. He closed his eyes. A sound came out of him that I will carry for the rest of my life. It was the sound of a man realizing that the person he murdered had known about it and chosen to love him anyway. It was the sound of grace landing on someone who knew they did not deserve it. And he could barely form the words. She still tried to save me? The trust. The matching thing. It was not punishment? No, I said. It was not punishment. It was a scaffolding. She was trying to build you something you never had. What? He asked. A foundation, I said. He looked down at the water. His grip loosened on the railing. One finger at a time. I am a murderer, Dad, he said. I killed her. I killed my own mother for money. What kind of person does that? What kind of foundation can you build on that? I looked at the bridge beneath my feet. The steel was old but sound. It held because someone had designed it to hold. Not because it was perfect. Because it was maintained. Because someone kept checking the welds and tightening the bolts and replacing the cables when they wore thin. This bridge can hold 50,000 tons, I said. You know why? Not because it was built perfect. Because someone keeps fixing it. Every year. Every season. Every time a crack appears, someone shows up with a welder and closes it. He looked at me. His eyes were searching. Desperate. Looking for something to hold on to that was not a railing over dark water. You never had a foundation, Ryan. I said it plainly. Without accusation, without anger. Your mother and I, we never let you build one. We handed you everything. We handed you the bridge without making you dig the footings. We gave you money instead of struggle. Comfort instead of calluses. We thought we were loving you. We were destroying you. I straightened up. I looked at my son. I offered him nothing except the truth. That was our failure, I said. Not yours alone. Ours. He stared at me. The wind pushed his hair across his face. Below us, the river moved on, carrying dead leaves and city runoff toward the sea. The same river that had been here before either of us existed. The same river that would be here long after. I cannot fix this, he said. His voice was small. A boy's voice. The voice of the 5-year-old who broke a window with a baseball and stood in the kitchen holding the ball, terrified. Not tonight, I said. Not tomorrow. Not next year. But you are 36 years old, Ryan. You have time. If you step down from that ledge, you have time. He looked at the water. He looked at me. He looked at his own white-knuckled hands gripping the rail. Step down, I said. Let me help you build it. For real this time. No money. No shortcuts. Just mortar. And sweat. And time. The way real foundations are made. His hands opened. His body swayed. For one terrible second, I thought he was falling forward. My hand shot out. But he was not falling forward. He was falling backward. Toward me. Toward the bridge. Toward solid ground. He collapsed over the railing and crumpled onto the sidewalk. I caught him. I held him. He buried his face in my shoulder and wept with the force of a man who had not cried honestly since he was a child. His body shook. His fingers gripped my jacket. He was heavy and broken and alive. I have got you, I said. I held him tighter. I have got you. Sirens in the distance. Someone on the bridge must have called. Blue and red lights appeared at the far end, pulsing through the mist. They were coming. The system was coming. The law was coming. The consequences were coming. But for this one moment, on this bridge, in the rain, there was only a father holding his son. And that was enough. That was the only foundation that mattered. 6 weeks changes the shape of a man. The way water changes the shape of stone. Not suddenly, not violently, but irreversibly. I sat in the back row of the federal courtroom and watched my son stand before Judge Patricia Okonkwo in an orange jumpsuit that hung from his shoulders like a flag at half-mast. His wrists were cuffed in front of him. His hair was cut short, uneven, the work of institutional clippers. He was thinner than the man on the bridge, but his eyes were different. The wildness was gone. The performance was gone. What remained was something I had not seen in my son since he was a boy. Stillness. The gallery was half full. Reporters in the back. A few of the investors who had filed suits, watching to see justice served. Martin sat beside me, his briefcase on his lap, his face neutral. Becca was not present. She was serving her own sentence at a women's correctional facility in Salem. 3 years for conspiracy and fraud related to the coaching scheme and her role in the forged medical evaluation. Her parents had sold their home to pay her legal fees. I did not feel satisfaction about that. I did not feel anything about Becca anymore. She was a chapter that had closed. The prosecutor, a compact woman named Sandra Hollins, presented the case with clinical efficiency. She outlined the fraud charges, the theft of trust assets, the forged documents, and then she arrived at the final charge, voluntary manslaughter in the death of Diane Elizabeth Sinclair. The courtroom shifted. The reporters leaned forward. This was what they had come for. The son who had slowly poisoned his mother for an inheritance he never received. Hollins played a portion of Diane's video. Not all of it. Just enough. Diane's voice filled the courtroom, thin and steady, describing the pills, the pharmacist, the cameras, the diagnosis. When the video ended, the silence was so complete I could hear the air conditioning cycling through the vents above. Judge Okonkwo turned to Ryan. "Mr. Sinclair, you have elected to plead guilty to all charges. Is that correct?" Ryan stood. His lawyer, a public defender named Ames who had taken the case after everyone else refused, stood beside him, but did not speak. This was Ryan's moment. He had asked to make a statement. The judge had allowed it. "Yes, Your Honor," Ryan said. His voice was steady, quiet, stripped of everything I had come to associate with him. The arrogance, the whining, the manipulation. It was just a voice, a man's voice admitting what he had done. The judge nodded. "You may make your statement." Ryan turned slightly. He did not look at the gallery. He did not look at the cameras. He looked at the floor in front of him, as if reading words written on the concrete. "I have no excuse," he said. "I switched my mother's heart medication because I needed her to die faster. I needed the money to pay gambling debts. I told myself she was old. I told myself she was going to die soon anyway. I told myself it was not really murder because I was not holding a weapon." He paused. His jaw tightened. "But I was holding a weapon. I was holding a pill bottle. And every morning I did not replace those vitamins with her. Real medicine was a morning I chose money over her life." He took a breath. The courtroom was motionless. "She knew," he continued. "My mother knew what I did, and she still tried to save me. She built an entire system designed to stop me from destroying myself. She spent the last year of her life, a life I was shortening, building something to protect me from the consequences of my own choices." He looked up at the judge. "I do not deserve leniency, Your Honor. I do not deserve compassion. I killed the only person who ever truly loved me. I accept whatever this court decides." He sat down. His hands were shaking, but his face was still. Ames put a hand on his shoulder. Ryan did not react. Judge Okonkwo studied him for a long moment. She reviewed her notes. She consulted briefly with the clerk. Then, she spoke. "Mr. Sinclair, the charges before this court are serious. Voluntary manslaughter carries a maximum sentence of 15 years. The financial fraud charges carry an additional 10. However, the court takes into account your guilty plea, your cooperation with the investigation, and the documented wishes of the deceased, who explicitly stated in a recorded statement that she did not wish to see her son imprisoned for the maximum term. She paused. This court sentences you to 8 years in state custody. You will be eligible for parole after 4 years, contingent on good behavior and completion of the institutional rehabilitation program. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution to the defrauded investors, to be arranged through the court-appointed payment plan upon your release. 8 years. The number settled over the room like concrete setting. Not the maximum. Not the minimum. A measured sentence. An engineered outcome. The bailiffs moved toward Ryan. He stood. He let them take his arms. He did not resist. He did not protest. He turned his head and looked toward the gallery. His eyes found mine in the back row. He did not speak. He did not mouth any words. He just looked at me, and then he nodded. A single, small movement of his head, barely visible. An acknowledgement. Not of defeat, of understanding. I nodded back. The same small motion. Father to son. Across a courtroom. Across years of damage. Across the uncrossable distance between what we were and what we might still become. They led him through the side door. The door closed behind him with a metallic click that echoed longer than it should have. I sat in my chair and stared at that closed door for a long time. Martin touched my arm. "Harold," he said gently. "It is over." I stood up. My knees ached. The courtroom was emptying around me. Reporters filed out, already typing on their phones. The investors left, satisfied. The judge retired to her chambers. "It is not over," I said. "It is just a different phase." I walked out of the courtroom into the bright Portland afternoon. The air smelled of rain and exhaust, and something green underneath it all. Life continuing. The world moving forward, whether we were ready or not. I had one more visit to make before this chapter closed. One more conversation through glass. One more thing to give my son before the walls of his new life sealed shut around him. Not money. Not freedom. Something harder. Something that would take him 4 years to unwrap and a lifetime to use. A blueprint. A hard hat. And a promise that the matching conditions still stood. The iron gates of Oregon State Penitentiary do not creak. They buzz with an electric hum and slide open with a mechanical thud that vibrates in your molars. It is a sound that says, finality. I walked through the metal detector, emptied my pockets into a gray plastic bin, and surrendered my phone. The guard did not care that I controlled a $30 million trust. In here, I was visitor number 38. The corridor smelled of bleach and something underneath it that bleach could not reach. Industrial lighting. Painted concrete. The architecture of containment. I had designed bridges meant to connect. This building was designed to sever. I sat in the visitation booth. The chair was bolted to the floor. The glass partition was scratched and cloudy from years of palms pressed against it. I placed a manila envelope on the counter in front of me. Inside it were 2 items. A scaled-down printout of a bridge blueprint and a brochure for the prison's vocational construction program. 10 minutes passed. Then the door on the other side buzzed. Ryan walked in. The transformation was complete. The tailored suits were gone. The expensive haircut was gone. He wore an orange jumpsuit that hung loose on a frame that had shed 20 pounds of restaurant dinners and champagne weight. His face was lean. His eyes were clear. Not bright. Not hopeful. Just clear. Like water that has finally stopped churning. He sat down. He picked up the black receiver. I picked up mine. "Dad," he said. His voice was quiet, measured. The voice of a man who had learned that volume costs energy he could not afford to waste. "Ryan," I said. He looked at me through the glass. He did not ask me to get him out. He did not ask for money. He did not ask for a better lawyer, or an appeal, or a transfer to a nicer facility. He just looked at me the way a student looks at a teacher on the first day. waiting. Open. How are you? I asked. He almost smiled. It was not a happy expression. It was the small twitch of a man who recognizes the absurdity of a simple question in an impossible situation. I am alive, he said. That is more than I planned to be 6 weeks ago. I nodded. We did not talk about the bridge. We did not need to. It existed between us, like a scar that both of us could feel without touching. I slid the manila envelope against the glass partition. He could not take it through the barrier, but he could see what was inside. I pulled out the blueprint first and pressed it flat against the glass. What is that? He asked. It is a bridge, I said. A pedestrian crossing. Simple design. Concrete footings. Steel frame. Wooden deck. Something a crew of 4 could build in 3 months. He leaned closer. His eyes moved across the drawing, the way mine had the first time I saw a structural plan at age 19. Not understanding every line, but sensing the logic of it. The order. The purpose. Why are you showing me this? He asked. Because I am going to build it, I said. At the center. Your mother's center. And I need a crew. He looked up at me. His jaw tightened. I pulled out the brochure and pressed it against the glass. The Oregon State Vocational Program. Construction and Engineering Fundamentals. 12-month certification. Available to inmates in good standing. The matching condition still stands, Ryan, I said. When you get out, every dollar you earn through legal work, the trust matches 1-to-1. Maximum $50,000 per year. That is real money earned with real labor. Not handed to you. Not gambled. Earned. He stared at the brochure. I could see him doing the math. Not the greed math he used to do, calculating how much he could spend. Different math. The math of time and effort and slow accumulation. The math of building something from the ground up. You want me to work construction? He said. It was not a question. I want you to learn how to build something that holds, I said. Something that does not collapse when the pressure comes. Something you can stand on and know it will not give way because you poured the concrete yourself. He was quiet for a long time. His hand rested on the counter. Fingers spread flat. I noticed calluses on his palm that had not been there before. Kitchen duty, maybe. Or laundry. The early calluses of a man whose hands were beginning to learn a different language. Okay, he said. I blinked. That was all. No argument. No negotiation. No conditions. Just okay. Graduate the program. I said. Top of the class. And when you walk out of here, I will be waiting in the parking lot with a hard hat and a job application. He looked at me through the scratched glass. His eyes were wet, but he did not cry. He had done enough crying. This was something else. Something quieter and harder and more fragile than tears. Thank you, Dad, he said. 3 words. The first honest words he had spoken to me in a decade. They landed like the final bolt in a bridge connection. Small. Essential. The piece that makes the whole structure sound. I hung up the receiver. I stood. He stood. We looked at each other through the glass one more time. Then he turned and walked back through the metal door. It buzzed and closed behind him. I did not watch him go. I had learned that goodbyes are easier when you are already looking forward. I collected my belongings at the front desk. I walked out into the daylight. The Oregon sun was low and golden, the kind of afternoon light that makes even prison parking lots look almost beautiful. I leaned against my truck and breathed. The air tasted like pine and freedom. I reached into my jacket pocket. There was one more envelope. The last one. Mirror 5. Diane had said to open it only if Ryan became physically dangerous. He had been dangerous on that bridge, but not to me. To himself. Did that count? I did not know. But Diane had left it for me. And I was done following rules, written by ghosts. I was ready to close the book. I opened the envelope. Inside was not a weapon, not evidence, not a legal document. It was a photograph. Faded, creased, at the corners. 3 people standing on a small wooden footbridge in Washington Park. 1989. Harold, Diane, and Ryan. Ryan was 5 years old, sitting on my shoulders, pointing at the ducks in the pond below. Diane was laughing. I was holding his ankles to keep him steady. I turned the photo over. On the back, in Diane's handwriting, 2 lines. Build him a new one, Harold. Love. Die. I pressed the photo to my chest. I stood in the parking lot with my eyes closed and the sun on my face. The weight I had been carrying since her video, since the funeral, since the gate, it did not disappear, but it shifted. It redistributed. It became something I could carry, something I could build with. I got in the truck. I turned the key. I had a phone call to make. A contractor named Frank, who knew how to swing a sledgehammer, and a mansion on Highland Drive that was about to become something Diane had dreamed of long before the mirrors and the money and the war. Frank showed up on a Tuesday with a crew of 12 and a dumpster the size of a shipping container. He stood in the grand foyer of 55 Highland Drive, looked up at the crystal chandelier worth $50,000, and asked me one question. All of it? All of it, I said. The chandelier came down first. Then, the silk wallpaper. Then the Italian marble countertops and the handcrafted mahogany banisters and the gold-plated bathroom fixtures that had never once been touched by hands that actually needed washing. We gutted the mansion the way a surgeon removes a tumor. Carefully where it mattered. Ruthlessly where it did not. I worked alongside the crew every day. Not as the owner. Not as the trustee. As a laborer. I carried drywall. I ran electrical conduit through walls I had not built, but could read like a blueprint. I mixed mortar and poured concrete and felt my hands remember what my desk had made them forget. I was 71 years old, and I had not swung a hammer in a decade, but the body remembers. The muscles remember. The rhythm of build, measure, cut, fasten. It is a language written in the joints and tendons, and it does not fade. The ballroom became the dining hall. We tore out the parquet flooring and replaced it with industrial tile that could handle 300 pairs of feet per day. We installed a commercial kitchen where the wet bar had been. Where Ryan had once popped champagne, we bolted stainless steel serving counters and hung a menu board offering hot meals to anyone who walked through the door. The library became the learning center. We kept the bookshelves but filled them with textbooks and trade manuals instead of first editions that nobody read. We added computer stations along the walls and a whiteboard at the front. I personally wired the internet cabling because I did not trust anyone else to run clean lines through 100-year-old plaster walls. The 12 bedrooms on the upper floors became dormitory suites. Small, clean, private. Each one with a bed, a desk, a lamp, and a window. No luxury. No excess. Just dignity. Just a door that locked from the inside, so that someone who had been sleeping in doorways could close their eyes without fear. The conservatory, I left alone. Diane's orchids still bloomed in the humidity. The teak potting bench still held the secret panel in the floor where I had found the letters and the blueprint. I kept it as it was. A sanctuary. A reminder that even in the middle of an empire, she had kept one small space that was purely alive. Martin retired from law practice and took over as executive director of the foundation. He traded his 3-piece suits for khakis and reading glasses that hung from a chain around his neck. He looked 10 years younger. Purpose does that to a man. It straightens the spine and clears the eyes. The center opened on a Saturday in March. There was no ribbon cutting, no press conference, no speeches. We just unlocked the front doors at 7 in the morning and let people in. The first person through the gate was a veteran named Thomas, who had been sleeping under the Morrison Bridge for 3 years. He walked into the dining hall, looked at the serving counter, and asked if the food was really free. "It is," I told him. "Sit anywhere you like." He sat at a table by the window. The same window where Ryan had once stood with a glass of scotch, looking down at the city like he owned it. Thomas ate scrambled eggs and toast and drank 2 cups of coffee. When he was done, he asked if he could come back tomorrow. "Every day," I said. "As long as you need." Within a month, we were serving 200 meals daily. Within 3 months, we had 40 residents in the dormitory suites. Veterans mostly, but also teenagers who had aged out of foster care with nowhere to go. Kids who had never had a permanent address. Men and women who had fallen through every crack the system had to offer. I was not just the donor. I was the maintenance man. When the pipes froze in January, I crawled under the building at 5 in the morning with a propane torch and thawed them myself. When the roof leaked above the 3rd-floor bathroom, I climbed up with a bucket of sealant and a flashlight. On Tuesdays, I taught basic mathematics in the Learning Center. On Thursdays, I ran a workshop on structural engineering for anyone interested. I called it Bridges and Foundations. 6 people showed up the first week. 23 by the end of the month. I became the grandfather that 50 children had never had. They called me Mr. H. They brought me drawings of bridges made of crayon and construction paper. I hung every one of them on the refrigerator in the commercial kitchen. A gallery of imagined crossings, purple bridges, green bridges, bridges with dinosaurs on them, bridges that connected nothing to nothing, but meant everything to the small hands that drew them. At night, when the center was quiet and the residents were asleep, I walked through the halls. I listened to the building breathe. It sounded different now. When Ryan and Becca had lived here, the house had been silent in a dead way. The silence of unused rooms and dust settling on expensive things nobody touched. Now the silence was alive. It was the silence of people resting after a hard day. The silence of safety. The silence of a structure doing exactly what it was designed to do. I stood in the foyer where the crystal chandelier had once hung. In its place was a simple industrial light fixture that cast a warm, even glow across the tile floor. Beneath it, mounted on the wall, was a brass plaque. The Diane Sinclair Center for Crisis Intervention. Founded in memory of a woman who built towers for the powerful and dreamed of building a home for the powerless. I touched the plaque. The brass was cold and smooth. "We did it, Di," I whispered. "Not a monument to money. A monument to second chances. 4 years changes a man. It changes the landscape of his face, wearing down the sharp edges of arrogance, until only the bedrock of acceptance remains. It changes his hands, thickening the skin across the palms, until they carry the map of every concrete block lifted, every pipe fitted, every bolt tightened in the prison workshop. It changes the way he stands. Not with the manufactured confidence of money, but with the quiet certainty of a man who knows exactly what he is capable of building. I was 73 years old on the morning I stood on the front lawn of the center, leaning on a cane I did not really need, but liked for the aesthetic. The October air smelled of cut grass and wood smoke from somewhere down the hill. Behind me, the sound of children laughing poured from the open windows of the dining hall. Breakfast was being served. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, in small paper cups, the same menu we had served every morning for 3.5 years. I checked my watch. The bus was due at 8:15. I had received the letter 2 weeks earlier. Standard parole notification. Ryan David Sinclair had completed 4 years of his 8-year sentence. Good behavior. Completion of the vocational construction program with honors. Top of his class, as I had requested. The parole board had approved his release. He would be arriving on the number 47 bus from Salem at 8:15 on a Tuesday morning in October. I did not tell Martin. I did not tell the staff. I did not prepare anything special. No welcome committee. No ceremony. Just a man waiting at the top of a hill for another man to arrive at the bottom. The bus appeared around the corner at 8:12. It was a standard city transit bus, white and blue, grinding up the hill with the labored breathing of an old engine. It pulled to the stop at the bottom of the driveway. The brakes hissed, the doors folded open. One passenger stepped off. He was thin, but not gaunt. His arms had the ropey musculature of a man who had spent 4 years lifting things heavier than his own ego. His hair was gray at the temples, cut short in a utilitarian style. He wore stiff new jeans, a plain windbreaker, and work boots that looked barely broken in. He carried a clear plastic bag containing his personal effects. There was not much in it. Ryan stood at the bottom of the hill. He looked up. I stood at the top. I looked down. 100 yards of asphalt between us. 4 years of silence. A lifetime of wreckage. And somewhere beneath all of it, the faintest thread of something that had never completely broken. He looked at the center. He saw the sign arching over the entrance. The Diane Sinclair Center for Crisis Intervention. He saw the children kicking a soccer ball on the lawn where his Porsche had once been parked. He saw the vegetable garden where the tennis court had been. He saw the life that had grown in the soil of his failure. Then he looked at me. I did not wave. I did not call out. I stood still and let him decide. This was his moment. His choice. His first free choice in 4 years. He could turn left and walk down the road toward the city. He could disappear into Portland and start over somewhere I would never find him. Or he could walk up the hill. He adjusted the plastic bag in his hand. He took a breath, and he walked up the hill. It took him 2 minutes to cover the distance. I watched every step. His gait was different, steadier, more grounded. The walk of a man whose center of gravity had shifted from his head to his feet. When he reached me, he stopped. We stood face to face for the first time without glass between us in over 4 years. He looked older. He looked better. He looked like a man, instead of a performance of one. I graduated, he said. His voice was quiet. No bravado. No salesmanship. Just fact. Structural engineering basics. Top of the class. I know, I said. I got your transcript last week. He nodded. He looked at the building behind me, at the children, at the garden, at the brass plaque by the door. His eyes moved across all of it, the way an engineer's eyes move across a site, reading the structure, assessing the integrity. Is that job offer still standing? He asked. I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out a hard hat. Yellow. Standard issue. I had written his name on the inside band in black marker. R. Sinclair. He took it. He turned it over in his hands. He ran his thumb across the name. He did not cry. He did not make a speech. He just put it on. I led him around the back of the building to where the foundation markers for the new pedestrian bridge had been staked out with orange flags. The bridge would connect the center grounds to the public park next door. Simple design. Concrete footings. Steel frame. Wooden deck. A 4-man job. 3 months of honest work. The other 3 crew members were already there. 2 of them were former residents of the center who had completed the construction training program. The third was Frank's nephew, fresh out of trade school. They nodded at Ryan. No judgment. No history. Just co-workers meeting on a job site. I handed Ryan a shovel. The footings need to be dug to 36 inches, I said. Soil composition here is clay over gravel. You will hit resistance at about 24 inches. Push through it. He gripped the shovel. He stepped to the first marker. He drove the blade into the earth. The sound was clean and sharp. Metal into soil. The beginning of something. I stood back and watched my son dig. His shoulders moved with the practiced rhythm of a man who had learned to work with his body instead of against it. Dirt piled up beside the hole. He did not stop. He did not complain. He just dug. 3 months later, the bridge was finished. Concrete footings cured solid. Steel frame welded true. Wooden deck sanded smooth and sealed against the Oregon rain. It spanned 40 feet from the center lawn to the park walking path. It was not a monument. It was not art. It was a bridge. It did what bridges do. It connected. We mounted the sign on a Saturday afternoon. Ryan held the drill while I positioned the bracket. The brass plate caught the autumn sunlight as we screwed it into the railing post. Diane's crossing. Ryan stepped back. He looked at the name. He looked at the bridge. He looked at me. He did not speak. He just nodded. The same small motion from the courtroom, but different now. Then it had meant understanding. Now it meant something more. It meant, I built this. With my hands. It holds. I nodded back. The same small motion. Father to son. The afternoon light turned golden across the park. Somewhere behind us, the dinner bell rang. Ryan took off his hard hat and wiped his forehead with his sleeve. He had earned $4,200 this month. The trust had matched it, $8,400 total. The first honestly earned money of his entire life. It was not $30 million. It was better. The conservatory was warm. It was always warm. The glass ceiling held the afternoon sun like a greenhouse holds a season, trapping the light and the heat and the humid breath of living things. Orchids bloomed in clusters of purple and white along the teak shelves. Ferns uncurled their green fists toward the glass. The air smelled of damp earth and growth, the opposite of every cold, sterile room I had inhabited during the war with my son. I sat on the potting bench, the same bench that held the secret panel in the floor, the same bench where I had found Diane's letters, and the blueprint that changed everything. I was 73 years old, and ill. My knees ached on cold mornings, and my hands were stiff until the second cup of coffee. But I was busier than I had been at 40. I was more awake than I had been at 50. I was more alive than I had been at any point in the long gray years between losing my wife on paper and losing her in truth. I pulled the photograph from my jacket pocket. The one from Mirror 5. Faded and creased. 3 people on a wooden bridge in Washington Park. 1989. A young father with strong shoulders. A young mother with sharp green eyes. And a small boy on his father's shoulders, pointing at ducks, laughing at the world because the world had not yet taught him that things could be taken without being earned. I looked at that photograph the way an engineer looks at the original drawing of a bridge before a renovation, studying what was, measuring what remained, calculating what could still be saved. Before I reflect on what this story has taught me, I want to hear from you. If this story touched something in your heart, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share it with them. Sometimes the stories that change us are the ones we almost did not hear. I spent 40 years calculating load-bearing capacities for bridges that carried thousands of people safely across rivers and valleys and canyons. Yet I nearly failed to build a solid foundation in my own home. My wife and I, we worked so hard to give our son everything. We gave him comfort. We gave him money. We gave him opportunity. But we never gave him the one thing that makes all of those gifts meaningful. We never gave him struggle. God does not give us blessings so we can hoard them. He does not fill our hands so we can pour everything into the hands of those who have not learned to carry weight. He gives us stewardship, the responsibility to use what we have wisely, even when wisdom looks like withholding, even when love looks like saying no. Even when the hardest word a parent can speak is the shortest one in the language. I think about what my wife did. She spent the final year of her life, a life that was being stolen from her by her own child, building a system designed not to punish but to protect. She forgave the unforgivable. She loved the unlovable, and she trusted me to be strong enough to execute the hardest blueprint she ever drew. That is grace. That is what God looks like when He works through imperfect people in impossible situations. The lesson I carry now, at 73, is simple. Every family betrayal I endured was a mirror showing me the entitlement I had created. I built that entitlement brick by brick, dollar by dollar. Every time I said yes when I should have said wait. Every time I wrote a check instead of handing my son a shovel. Every time I chose his comfort over his character. When you remove struggle from someone's life, you remove their ability to grow. You remove the calluses that protect their hands from the roughness of the world. You remove the foundation that keeps them standing when the storm comes. And the storm always comes. God could not rebuild my son on sand. The sand had to be cleared all the way down to bedrock. That meant pain. That meant prison. That meant standing on a bridge in the rain and choosing to step back instead of forward. It meant 4 years of digging and lifting and sweating in a vocational program that paid nothing but gave him everything. It meant earning $4,200 a month and understanding for the first time that those dollars meant more than 30 million ever could, because money you earn with your hands becomes part of you. It carries the memory of the labor. It holds the weight of the effort. It connects you to the world in a way that inherited wealth never can. My son learned that lesson at 36. Some people never learn it at all. I do not tell this story for sympathy. I do not tell it for vindication. I tell it because somewhere tonight, there is a parent sitting at a kitchen table, writing a check for a child who has not earned it. Somewhere there is a mother emptying her savings into a son's gambling debt because she is afraid of what he will do if she says no. Somewhere there is a father watching his daughter's entitlement grow like a crack in a foundation and telling himself it will be fine. It will not be fine. Not until someone has the courage to put down the checkbook and pick up the truth. Love is not a soft thing. Not always. Sometimes love is the hardest concrete you can pour. Sometimes it is the word no, spoken into the face of someone you would die for. Sometimes it is watching your child fall and choosing not to catch them because the fall is the only teacher left. God teaches us this over and over. He does not remove our trials. He walks with us through them. He does not spare us consequence. He redeems us after it. That is the blueprint. That is the foundation beneath everything. If this story resonates with you, if it made you think about your own family, your own choices, the foundations you are building or failing to build, I would be grateful if you would subscribe to this channel. Not for me, for the conversation, for the community of people who believe that hard truths told with compassion can change the way we love each other. And if you are that parent at the kitchen table tonight, pen in hand, check half written, I have one piece of advice. Put the pen down. Pick up the phone. Call your child and say the 3 hardest words a parent can say. I love you. And then say the 3 hardest words after that. But the answer is no. The dinner bell rang. It echoed through the hallway and into the conservatory, warm and loud. The sound of hungry people about to be fed. I stood up. My knees did not hurt today. I tucked the photograph back into my pocket, next to my heart where Diane had always lived. I had work to do. There was a leak in the 3rd-floor bathroom that needed an engineer's eye, and I had promised a 10-year-old boy named Marcus that I would teach him how to calculate the load-bearing capacity of a bridge made of popsicle sticks. I walked out of the conservatory and into the noise of my new life. The sound of plates and laughter and chairs scraping against tile. The sound of a building doing what it was built to do. My name is Harold Sinclair. I am 73 years old, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. Home. A final note. This narrative contains fictionalized elements crafted for storytelling and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real persons is coincidental. If this is not your preference, feel free to explore other content that better suits your interests. Thank you for staying with me until the very end.